What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Served on the Rocks, powered by Living in Colorado, The Mile High Perspective, and Fathom Realty on YouTube. My name is Charlie Sardelli, and I am here with today
Jameson Amaros.
And guys, if you're hearing this, Oscar's in the barrel again today. He had a couple showings to go do. Right? I had a couple showings to go do today, so you got Jameson and I talking about a fun topic. Fun topic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And before we get into it, before we start it, guys, remember this podcast, what we do is we try and give real estate professionals, consumers, some information about the real estate market and what's going on, just so everybody feels empowered and ready to go into the real estate market when they're ready. But
knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, in everything, but real estate especially. While we do that, Real Estate Served on the Rocks,
what are we serving on the rocks?
We drink some bourbon and whiskey.
We do drink some bourbon and whiskey here. We do.
Yes, we do. We're 61. Number 61.
Yeah. And if you guys are first-time listeners, basically what we do is talk about some tough topics, drink some good whiskey or bourbon or whiskey bourbon, depending on what we're drinking, and then give our initial thoughts, go into the conversation. At the end of the show, we go ahead and do what's called a rock rating, where we tell you guys our unfiltered opinions of the bourbon that we taste and whether or not you guys should go out and buy it.
Yeah.
So stick around.
I'm having fun, man. At the end of the day, like, looking forward to doing this podcast every week, and I've had so many people reach out to me and just say thank you so much for the information. And, like, that's why we do this. It's why we're here. Number one point.
I helped a guy figure out a down payment the other day.
Yep.
And this morning in Illinois.
It's great.
Yeah. He literally was like, hey, what should I put down? I'm like, give me your scenario.
Yep.
Gave it to me. I gave him some advice and said, at the end of the day, obviously consult your realtor and do what you want to do. But he was grateful for the information, which was awesome because it was, real quick synopsis. It was either, do I put 15% down? Do I put 20% down? Does it make a difference on my monthly payment? So I went ahead and broke it down for him, and he was super appreciative. He's buying a house in Illinois. So
value, baby.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was good to see.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Yep.
And speaking of value, the bourbon that we're drinking today, it looks pretty regal.
Stellum.
Yeah, so go ahead, Jameson, break it down. On today's episode, we're drinking Perseus Stellum.
Yep.
And it's a bourbon at 112%. I'm going to go ahead and pour it out. Jameson, give us some info.
So Stellum is a bourbon, and they make a couple of different bourbons, including rye. This one, though, they have a specific single barrel program is what they call it. And all of their single barrels are named different things, right? So they've got Cygnus, Lyra, Vega, Serpens, Regal, Leo, Perseus, Pollux, and Castor, which I don't know this. I'm going off of context clues. Stellum, I want to say it's Latin for stars.
Okay.
I would assume, and all of their single barrel names are
like constellations?
Yes, exactly. Right. So I'm assuming that's where we're at, which it's Regal. It's whatever. Anyway, I'm excited for it. Two things. It is a barrel pick from Bubbles, local here in Castle Rock. So basically the Bubbles tasters go out and they taste samples of these single barrels and they pick one that they like the best. So while there are multiple single barrels named Perseus, this one is specifically chosen by the tasters at Bubbles and then put on sale for us to enjoy.
Okay.
So pretty cool.
All right.
It is cask strength, which as we all know by now, if you guys are longtime listeners and watchers, basically it just means that whatever the alcohol by volume is, when they distill it out of the barrel, they do not touch it. They do not water it down with any sort of water or anything like that to bring it to a certain ABV. So whatever it is, that's what you get. And this one, I believe, is 112. So we're talking almost 56.5% alcohol by volume, which normally means put some hair on your chest. Tends to be, normally this is Oscar's wheelhouse. If he was here, I think he would enjoy this one. Higher proof normally lends towards, more, not I want to say experienced bourbon drinkers, like I have experience.
Well, no,
it's the same thing.
There's a reason why they say you have to develop a taste for it.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And we started from zero, and now by no
started
means are
from
we
the bottom. Now we're here.
Right? by no way measure am I a connoisseur.
Nope.
But I can definitely tell that the more bourbon you drink, the more you look for certain flavors and notes, the more you learn about it. And it's been really, really cool for me, especially going from the videography and helping a company build stuff and learning more about the back end process. To just see the love and effort that goes into the bourbon. Where are they out of?
That is a good question. But what I do want to say is the way they do these single barrels is they take their bourbon and their rye barrels and they mix them together. Mm-hmm. And then what they do is they start tasting them and they set aside specific barrels that have a unique flavor, unique attribute, whatever it is. And then those single barrels are bottle by bottle single barrels in select markets. So this is not something that you can just go out to a liquor store in any state and buy.
Yep.
Which is kind of cool. As far as where they're from, it's a great question because it doesn't really say.
I'm just interested because if Bubbles is sending tasters out, like how I mean, I'd love to know how that works too.
Yeah.
Just like, do they reach out and say, "Hey, do you want to do a barrel pick?" Does Bubbles?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of times it's the distilleries that say, "Hey, we have this available in your market, so can we come by and you can pick your own?" And then they offer it kind of at a premium. But it's Barrel Craft Spirits, which is out of Jeffersontown, Kentucky.
Okay.
So they're kind of the umbrella organization.
Okay. But it's a Kentucky bourbon.
It is.
That's what I wanted to ask, because we've had some that were higher proof, that were more boutique brands from, Washington and other states, but this is Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Does it say anything about do they do a lime wash?
They do not.
They do not. Okay.
Do not.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, they've won a bunch of awards. I'm not even going to tell you about San Francisco at this point because it's just dumb.
If you're a bourbon, you win.
But Ultimate Spirits Challenge in 2021, the John Barleycorn Awards in 2021, LA Spirits Award in 2021, New York International Spirits Competition in 2021, and then, of course, the gold medal in the San Francisco World Spirits Competition 2021 and 2023.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
No way. Mm-hmm. Gold in San Francisco.
You would never have
in 2
guessed,
years.
right?
Wow.
Never have guessed.
Never would have thought about it.
Nope.
But
anyway,
maybe we should do a side video talking about what the category is, what the specifications are.
Dude, at this point, it's like best stopper, best label, most appealing glass shape, best color.
It's got to be something.
Coldest to the touch.
And if you're not listening or watching on the video right now, this bottle does kind of look like a wine bottle.
It does.
It's definitely closer to like a Midsummer's Night Dram, or
It reminds me of Pinhook.
Pinhook. Yeah. It's close to Pappy too.
It is close to Pappy.
Very close to Pappy as far as how not taste. We're not.
Speaking of shout out, we had a comment on our TikTok channel. If you guys follow us, if you don't, the Mile High Perspective on TikTok, and there's a dude that's commenting, goes, "Bro, leave some of the Weller for the rest of us. It looks like you got a year's worth of the Washington." And I told him, I was like, because it was a clip that you can't really see the rest of the wall. I was like, I told him, I was like, you don't even see the entire shelf of EH
Yep. Oh,
so
that's awesome.
we'll have to do like a giveaway maybe.
Yeah.
And because they don't pay attention, so
Episode 100.
give away a bottle. Yeah. But anyway, So mash bill on this one, so ABV is alcohol by volume is 56%. The mash bill on this one is 75% corn, 21 rye, 4% barley malt.
Okay, so it's kind of standard.
My guess would be hot, but also with some sweet undertones.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I think that is kind of one of the more regulatory.
Yes.
To your point, why Oscar would like it so much. Just higher corn, a little bit of rye, a little bit.
And this one was distilled in 2022.
Okay.
There are other ones just kind of for comparison. So Cygnus is a 60% corn, 36 rye, 4% malt, and then they've also got, which this would be interesting, 95 rye, 5% malt. And then the rest are the 75, 21, and 4.
Nice.
So
okay, I'm interested. I mean, just on the nose in general on this guy, you could definitely get that sweetness. Mm-hmm. And the color, I feel like, to me, when we get a color like this, where it's like that more brown amber leaning to that darker amber, it does have a little bit more sweetness. Mm-hmm. I am interested to see though how the like the oak and the wood flavors play into it a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up, start swirling it. We've let it open and poured it. So we like to let it open for a little bit. Bless you, sir.
Oh, that's going to hurt anybody listening on headphones. Sorry about that.
But cheers, my friend.
Oscar.
All right, let's see.
Okay, so right off the bat, at 56%, way less burn.
Yes.
Than I would have assumed.
I don't know if you guys heard, you could hear that in the audio, but I was legit. I'm getting in there.
Like it almost, this is like, I would assume at 40, 45, maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The ethanol is
very low.
Yeah.
I mean, sweet up front,
Very sweet.
very
Candy
sweet.
almost.
Little,
Candy
I was gonna
almonds.
say like caramel vanilla, but also I'm getting a lot of fruit,
Yep.
like a lot of like berry fruit up front. And you have the tasting notes on him before we or for
Let
after.
me pull them up. I have them for the bourbon.
Okay.
The rye, it's only 5% rye.
Yeah.
So,
It's all good.
um,
Let me see. All right. I mean, and even you could see it's not
it was close.
heavy. It's not heavy. But I'm gonna go ahead.
I really need
that
to.
honey, that sweetness.
This is going to sound horrible. I really need to up my nut game.
yeah.
Because
Oh, no,
I'm just
bro.
saying, because like when I
Oh, okay. No, you are right. To give a disclaimer, I can back this up. In the area where we film, there's a container, like a bucket of like nuts, right? Jameson takes the time to pick out certain nuts from the nuts.
That's what I'm saying. So when I get into tasting notes, I'm like, man, I really wish I could actually taste what a macadamia nut smells like, but I don't have context because I
This
don't like
tastes
macadamia
like a nut. Just a nut. All right. First sip. Here we go. Obviously, first sip is always the burn, but okay, the flavor, like the burn's there, but I'm getting flavor through the burn, even on the first sip.
Yeah, the burn doesn't hit me till the very back, like if I breathe through it
Okay.
on the back of the tongue. But the vanilla caramel notes come out.
Woo. Oh yeah, they're heavy. All right. Now the first sip is the burn sip. Second sip is a taste sip. So let's. Oh, I feel it. I feel it going down. 112 proof. Here we go. Wow.
I mean, as it sits on the tongue, I get more pepper.
Yep. For
But-
me, it's like spice,
Yep.
chocolate, oak, like wood, and then caramel, vanilla, sweet.
Yeah.
And then that berry, the sweetness of the berry, like the tartness of a berry on like the outside of the back of my tongue.
All right, I'm gonna be the Oscar of the two of us today.
Uh-oh. This tastes like cement drops.
No, I'm gonna go with like Lucky Charms.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I could see that.
like the marshmallow Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Yep. And then pepper. Like the pepper is sitting on the back of my tongue, and then the sweetness is out, which obviously makes sense. I think that's where your taste buds for sweet and spicy and all that is. But I mean,
The burn's minimal for what it
for,
is.
for 112.
And I mean, I feel like some of the other high proofs that we've had or above 100
So I
proofs
just
that we've
realized I
had.
don't have my side table.
Right.
I know. It's unnatural.
I think it's right. I think it's like the fact for me that the first initial kind of reaction to it, the fact that the flavors I would say burst through the burn, like you get the burn, but you're still getting the flavor through it, and as it's sitting on the palate, definitely sits sweet. The spice is there, but definitely sits sweet. What was the rye on this again? What was the percentage rye on this?
4.
4. Interesting. It's a little dry for.
Well, hold on.
Yeah, because I thought the malted barley was the full.
Sorry, multiplier was 4.
Yeah.
You're right. 21, I think.
Yeah. Okay. 20 to 21 is normal, but this one has a little bit more of a.
This one is 75 corn, 21 rye.
Yeah.
4% barley malt.
Okay. Definitely sits like it has a little bit more of a tartness to it, but I think
It
that's
does,
the berry. All right. So what are the notes supposed to be?
It's good.
What
So
what do the specialists say?
let's see what the people that do this as a career say. All right, so on the nose, intense clove and allspice immediately jumps out, supported by creamy macadamia nuts and light tobacco.
Nice.
Honeysuckle, green apple, nectarine, rounded off by toasted rye and oak, which I can get.
Yep. The honeysuckle and the apple. That's where I'm definitely getting that fruit, that sweetness. From.
Yep. As far as the palate, vanilla, marshmallow, and cotton candy.
Yeah. I mean, you did say Lucky Charms.
And then black pepper, cayenne pepper, and cinnamon baked apples.
Nice.
And then where you tasted it, underripe tart blackberry and apricot.
Ooh.
Yep.
Very
and
cool.
then it turns into candied ginger, more black pepper before slowly fading into a syrupy sweet honey, which I do get that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
But I will say the fact that I mentioned syrupy,
Yes.
this is very light on the tongue, like very light on the
It
palate.
is. It
Like
really is.
that's what surprised me the most, especially because of the density, like
Oh,
the color of it. I thought it was going to sit a little heavy,
Yeah.
but it was a little bit more silky.
No, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be a lot, especially looking at the legs on it. Like it looks thicker than a Snicker.
Yeah.
But,
It's the Meg the Stallion.
you know what I'm saying?
of
Yeah,
bourbons.
exactly. Ooh, breaking
great.
news 8 minutes ago. If you
Yep.
guys are watching this live, which you're not, the Fed holds rates steady and maintains 3 cuts are coming sometime this year.
Hey boy.
So my guess is tomorrow you will see rates drop a little bit.
Interesting. All right. I like.
Yep.
We just have a live update episode.
Live updated episode. Yeah.
Well, speaking of live updates and the topic that we're talking about today, live updates are going to be very, very important. I'm sure, as everybody has seen, last Friday, and honestly, like I don't. At the beginning, I was like, "Oh, it's a bombshell. It's clickbait." But no, it seems like as we go through it more, the NRA, the National Association of Realtors.
NAR. NRA is very
Sorry, NAR. Yeah, dyslexia. I apologize. the
Maybe
NAR
we should have had the NRA
coming into
going
it.
and
Lobby
testify
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good lobby. Yes, NAR, National Association of Realtors. They settled in their lawsuit that was brought against for what they said for artificially
Price fixing.
Price
Basically,
fixing,
it was
yeah.
price fixing.
Yeah.
Is what the contention was.
Yep.
Was price fixing.
And we have an episode on this. I think it's 8 or 9 back now. We talked about this kind of as it first started hitting the news, started coming out. But they just reached their settlement on Friday. Now, the important note about this is that the settlement is not finalized.
Correct.
So we want to preface this for
It is
everybody.
a suggested.
Yes, suggested, and it's supposed to be finalized sometime in April. April or May. And that's basically what that will do is that will have a judge approve the settlement parameters for what NAR has proposed. And we want to make this as clear as possible to everybody watching and listening. This is an ongoing endeavor.
Yes.
And so today what we're going to talk about is what we think and how and what we're seeing in the market, in the industry, about how this could change the landscape a little bit and what it could do. But again, this is all subject to change.
That, and we want to kind of go over, there's been a lot of, the news,
They're
just like with
newsing,
everything
man.
else.
The news are
The
newsing.
media has just, it's gone nuts, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we want to make sure you guys, when you're reading headlines, at least have like a background,
basis.
right? A teachable point of view of what's actually happening, because you'll see news articles like this one. The National Association of Realtors will eliminate its standard 5 to 6% sales commission as part of the $418 million settlement with home sellers. That is just simply not true, right? No. Also, standard does not mean that it was required. Also not true. There was another news article that said something along the lines of sellers are no longer required to pay buyer's agents. One,
required.
Not true. Two, also never required. So we want to go through some of that kind of stuff and kind of clear up where everything stands, how we think it might shape up. But again, like Charlie said, like we're talking minute by minute updates. And I think the important thing to note here is this lawsuit's been going on for about a year and a half, 2 years.
It started in 2018.
Well, I guess like through the court system
okay.
and testimony and whatnot.
Yep.
And nobody in our industry got a heads up that a settlement was coming. So like we actually woke up to find out about it by reading news headlines. I got an alert on my phone at like 8 a.m.
Yep.
And I was like, wait, what is this? Right. But everybody. So there's a lot of misinformation happening. And I think the point is, from a consumer standpoint, you're going to hear a lot of different opinions. And the fact of the matter is, right now as it stands on, what is today? Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, nobody has a clue as to what the final product is going to look like. More likely than not, it's just going to lead to more transparency, I think. Right?
Yeah, well,
as far
and
as
I think that's
But
I think that's a very important note to start this out on. You know, there's a lot of agents, and Jameson and I went yesterday, and we sat in about a 2.5 hour course on this. And there were over 200 agents in this meeting.
Yep.
Like normally we see maybe 15 to 20.
Yes.
But 200 agents in this room, and we're trying to learn as much as we can, because at the end of the day, the reason that we got here, and we've said this multiple times, is that not enough people understand what goes on in a real estate transaction.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, us as realtors need to take responsibility for the fact that that's partially on us.
Yes.
And I feel like the industry has fallen into this, you know, the norm, the everyday go for it kind of a deal. And a lot of people, a lot of agents haven't divulged enough information, have not made clients feel comfortable enough when they put their signature on that paper as to how the transaction works, how we get paid, all of that. And I think that's what led us here today. And honestly, public, you guys have every right to feel the way that you do. And you know, I've said it before, when I got into this industry, I was so excited because I wanted to help people. I wanted to, you know, help them with the biggest transaction, see their lives change. Just helped a first-time home buyer. We closed on Friday. It was the greatest experience.
Yep.
They're sending me photos of the townhouse and then moving in and stuff. Like, that's why I got into it. But I very rapidly learned that real estate agents are not seen in a positive light.
Right.
And you can say that's due to media, whatever it is. At the end of the day, it's our responsibility as realtors to make you feel comfortable and have you understand what we're doing, what we're talking about, and what our value is, right? So kind of on that note, the headlines, I think for me, it's going on social media, and obviously social media, everybody has a right to their opinion. Everybody has a right to talk about it. I feel like a couple people jumped in too fast, and then the media got hold of it, and now we're seeing headlines of 6% commission is dead.
Yeah.
Home prices are going to decrease because agents aren't going to make as much in commission. I think one thing that I want to talk about, first off, is the home prices decreasing.
Okay. What's the argument being made?
The argument being made, and this is partially part of what brought the lawsuit, is that agents and how we get paid, we have added value to homes. We've made home prices higher in order to accommodate our commissions.
Okay.
And basically what a lot of the news articles are saying is that because agents' commissions are being cut, home prices will go down. Sorry guys, but that's not what it is.
No.
The home prices are dependent on the market. It is dependent on what people are willing to pay for the house. And to say, at the end of the day, to think that a home seller is going to say, I will now list my home for $20,000 below market value because I'm not paying that to an agent, I think that's an asinine thought. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, people do for sale by owners to make the most money. Sure. People embrace agents to make the most money on their home. And to think that a seller is going to take a cut on what they could possibly make because they're not paying commission, this is not going to happen. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. I think, the misnomer is that somehow the commissions are built into the home price. I think that's where the misconception is. And that's never been the case, right? Now, are there scenarios where, like, if you're a for sale by owner and you say, I'm not going to pay a listing agent, well, that for sale by owner still wants to sell the house for the most amount of money. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, those for sale by owners will still offer a broker co-op because they want somebody to handle the transaction, right? But there's a reason that 91% of people last year decided to use a realtor to either buy or sell their house because it is a complicated transaction. I just don't. I agree with you, right? I don't think commission has bumped up home prices. There's been weird comments that I've seen pop up, especially on our TikTok channel when we've talked a little bit about this prior, where somebody says, "Oh, if it's a first-time homeowner that's buying, then the realtor jacks up the price of the house."
Yeah, I saw that comment too.
Which is never. If that's happening, that shit needs to get reported, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, a house on the market is worth whatever somebody is willing to pay for it at any given time. That is the definition of a free market, right? If, there's been scenarios where if I've worked directly with a buyer, which has happened, that, because there's not a buyer's agent on the other side, the commission can be maybe cut in half, which then adds a little bit more to what the seller makes. And in which case you can make the argument, hey, if I'm not demanding another 2.5% and the seller's making another 2.5%, can you lower the purchase price by 2.5%? Sure. Like you can do that. Right. But I would also argue that there's also scenarios where if you're a buyer unrepresented and you're trying to make that happen, you're going to get steamrolled by a skilled negotiating party that's going to eventually bring the house up to where it's at. Right. Like it's a misnomer. I get it. But I also think that's part of the symptoms of the problem, where because it's not transparent, people don't understand, right? So we'll take a news headline just because this is kind of going on your thought process. The headline was, sellers are no longer required to pay a buyer's agent. I'm going to talk about Colorado specifically, okay? The way commission payouts work in Colorado is I'm a listing agent. I go to list a home, and I go to the appointment. I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? What are your timelines? What's your ultimate thing that you want to accomplish when you list and sell this home? I want to list it for the most amount of money, or I need it to be closed very quickly. I'd love a cash offer because I don't want to deal with an appraisal. I'd like an investor because I don't want to deal with an inspection, whatever that looks like. I need to I need to sell so I can buy my next house. So I need to make X amount of money. And we all look at that, right? Every time I go to a listing, my first question is, hey, what do you want to make? Like you personally, how much do you want to or need to make? And then from that point on, I offer my services and say, hey, this is what I do. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A lot of it's marketing. A lot of it's communication, negotiation, different packages that we offer. And that I charge a fee to help sell that house so that they don't have to, right? I've said it forever. You don't need to use a realtor to sell or buy a house. You just don't. If you guys want to go and hash it on your own, by all means, go for it. It just means all of the liability is on you guys, not us. That's one of the big things that we provide. The other thing is local expertise, right? How we can price and position your home to sell it faster. And this isn't a, hey, hire us because we're awesome type of deal. My point is, the way the commissions payout works is the seller pays me a commission. Call it 5%, right? That money then goes to me to market and sell that home. I will spend that money on photos, on video, on paid Facebook ads, on open house, on staging, on signs, on whatever it needs to do. And some of that is also to pay a buyer's agent to bring a buyer to represent that party separately. So the seller pays the listing agent. The listing agent then pays a portion of that commission to the buyer's agent. And that is negotiable.
Yes.
What the seller pays the realtor is negotiable. Always has been, always will be. That's how it gets paid out. There is not a scenario in Colorado where a buyer pays directly just a buyer's agent, except for technically a for sale by owner, because there is no listing agent. So the buyer, or this for sale by owner, pays the buyer's agent to bring a buyer and represent that party in the sale. So I think that's a big misunderstanding. It's not like a seller is just cutting two checks, one to each person. Because yes, I agree. That would be unfair. If I'm a seller, why am I paying? No, but that's not the case, right? At the same time, that's what people think happens. And I think that's a big reason where you get this whole idea of like affordability and it's more expensive and home prices are going through the roof. So why am I all of a sudden paying more out of my hard-earned money to not only the person that's selling my house, but also the person that's helping somebody buy my house? That doesn't make any sense. No.
Well, no, and if you watch the lawyer in any portion of the way, if you watch the lawyer who brought this litigation against, that's what he talks about is it is ridiculous that sellers are paying for buyers' representation and buyers should be paying for that on their own, right? And that leads us to like the biggest change and why this is touted as the biggest change in real estate in the last 100 years is because now what's happening is we as agents are no longer, at least in this settlement from NAR, the National Association of Realtors, we are no longer to list or show any kind of co-op commission on the multiple listings service. We cannot show any buyer's agents as a listing agent what we are going, if we are going, or what we're going to do with that commission amount.
And why was that a topic of this settlement? Like, what led to that? Because in my head, if everything's negotiable and my seller is okay with offering a commission to me and okay with me then offering a portion of that to a buyer's agent, so I list it, right?
Yeah.
What supposedly was happening? Not saying that it hasn't. There's bad apples in every industry, and I'm going to touch on this here in a second. But what was happening supposedly with buyer's agents and clients?
I mean, they weren't disclosing.
They were steering is what the argument was, right? So essentially the argument was, well, if a buyer's agent sees a home that's only offering 1%, they are purposely not going to show the client that property. Okay. So here's what I'm going to tell you guys right now. If that ever happened, it shouldn't have at all. If a client says, hey, I want to go look at this property, my job is to help that client buy whatever property it is that they eventually want to offer on. Okay. Why do you think that was happening? Like, what's your opinion?
Like I said at the beginning of the episode, I really just think that it became commonplace. We just a real estate transaction is what it is. This is how it's done.
No, I'm saying, why do you think there were realtors or agents steering clients away from lower commission, quote unquote, payouts in houses?
Oh, I mean, it's income. At the end of the day, it's income. You know what I mean? And here, I want to say this before we go any further. You and I both come from a law background, right? And I don't care left-leaning, right-leaning, center, whatever you are. I truly believe that the court system that we have in the United States, I have to believe in it. And what I mean by that is, like, as a realtor, I can sit here and be angry and be like, well, this happened and this happened and this shouldn't have. We can say all of those things.
Sure.
But this went through due process.
It did.
Right? So what that means is a court found...
To a point.
To a point, yes. But a court did find that there was reasonable...
Correct.
Reason. There was a reason that this could pass, right? And at the end of the day, to say that, was there price fixing? Was there... I don't think it was deliberate.
No.
At the end of the day, and again, this is my opinion, but being a new agent in the industry, coming in when agents flooded it, I have seen other agents that are long-term in the business. It's a process. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And I don't think that the real estate profession, career as a whole, has done a great job of disclosure and keeping face value, not just texting their clients, not just emailing their clients, being a face that they see on Zillow, and then, hey, here's my transaction coordinator that's going to put you through all of this. I think that's where we faulted. I think that's where the distance was created. And in a sense, we've done this to ourselves.
Yeah, and to take it one step further, I think, my hypothesis is because it is such an easy industry to get into, right? Do not get me wrong, there is a lot of work that goes in to being a realtor, right? From lead gen to marketing to showing houses to negotiating contracts. And I will make this contention because I know as soon as I post this on TikTok, people are going to flood the comments, right? Not all states are created equal when it comes to realtors and what their responsibilities are.
Yes.
There are states, aka Texas, where as a buyer's agent, my job is to go, honestly, unlock doors, show properties, find clients, and then real estate attorneys will take over and charge a fee, $400 an hour, whatever it is, to then write up contracts, write up counter proposals, write up inspection reports or inspection objections, all that kind of stuff. And the agent then shows up for showings and closings, right? Do I think I would be fantastic at that in Texas? I should make a killing because I would be more involved than most Texas agents, right? In Colorado, we are responsible for understanding, articulating, and synthesizing 15 and 20-page contracts just for buyers and sellers agreements, let alone offers, counter proposals, inspection objections, resolutions. We draft up addendums. We draft up amendments. We are in control of the transaction from start to finish, which is unique to only a few different states, right? So obviously I'm going to have a bias a little bit saying that, yeah, we probably do a decent amount of work. Not saying that, if I'm in Texas, I probably do even more work from a marketing and lead generation standpoint and running a business in that sense. So obviously they have their own thing. But this is also why commissions have always been negotiable. How much work do you put in? It should be requisite to the effort that goes into it, right? In Colorado, for example, for a buyer's agent to get one client under contract, the average hours worked is 80 to 100 per client.
Yep.
That's a lot. And you and I both, hell, you have a client and I had clients that we worked with for over a year before they got, put in. That being said, because the industry is such a low bar and barrier to entrance, you get the people that do come in and will do a half-assed job because it is their part-time. My husband or wife makes enough money. I just want to do this part-time, close a couple of deals, and I'm good. And I don't think, unless you put in the work to continually educate yourself, put yourself in a position to be in front of clients, so on and so forth, you get enough experience on the job to be effective.
Yes.
Right? Without doing that.
Yep.
So I think what happened is you get the part-timers that go, I'm going to close 1 or 2 deals a year, and they start looking at what these advertised commission splits were and going, well, I'm not going to sell the 1% house. I want the 2.5% house because I don't want to make $6,000. I want to make $12,000 because if I make $12,000, then I don't have to work for the next 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
Right? And I believe in my heart of hearts that one of the best things that will come out of this settlement is it will eliminate the part-time bullshit agents that are coasting because they know a friend of a friend of a friend just got recommended and gave that person a horrible experience. There was no follow-up. There wasn't an actual business model. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what's been interesting to me is seeing, just kind of sitting on the sidelines. And even in that class yesterday that we took, like I said, 200 realtors, I was just looking around. I wanted to be an observer, fly on the wall. I was just looking around at how realtors were reacting. And if you're a realtor, if you're a real estate agent, and you're angry about this, again, maybe you should step back and ask why you're angry. Like at the end of the day, this was passed to help the consumer. This was passed with the idea of making it better for the consumer.
Yes.
And I understand that. Absolutely. But I think it's look at the reflection. If this angers you and you're not excited about how you can adapt and still help the clients through this, then maybe you need to address that you might be part of the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I agree. And I think there was another case that they discussed, right?
Yeah.
And it was the Sitzer case was, hey, we've driven up commission. It's costing homeowners millions and millions of dollars, which, okay, cool. Now it's going to cost buyers millions and millions of dollars.
We'll get there.
It's the same side of the different coin, right? But the other case that I thought was interesting that's probably not going to get to the finish line is the one that calls out level of service. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I think to me, like overall, because at the end of the day, the general public, right? Not all of you guys. I totally understand that we've gotten in enough online arguments that there's different sides of this opinion. I know that. But the majority of the public wants help from a realtor or real estate professional to navigate this process because there is such a human element involved, right? Like there just is. Like there's a reason, we talked about this yesterday, right? There's a reason that like a Carvana has failed.
Yeah.
That was the seamless buy a car from a vending machine, same prices, no commission salespeople, whatever. You drive down I-25 in Colorado Boulevard, there's a weird spiral thing. You just pick a car, B7, I want the Honda Civic, right? Well, there's a reason their stock tanked 87%. People still want to deal with people. And hopefully, coming out of this, the people that you're dealing with on the real estate industry are individuals that are invested in their own continuing education. I hope, honestly, that there's more stringent education guidelines and parameters. I hope that licensing is harder to get or more expensive or something. I hope that the training and education support is more standardized than it is right now, right? And I think that's a big problem because you go through and hell, dude, last 2 years I've done 27 transactions. I've learned something new every single transaction because there's different counties, there's different zoning, there's septic versus sewer versus well permits versus, surveys versus seller property disclosure versus radon. Like all these different things change.
Yep.
And you're dealing with people and you want somebody that you can talk to and trust, right? So and I agree to your point, if you're scared, I'm sorry, you probably shouldn't be in the industry because in the back of your head, you're not prepared to have the conversation with a client, say, hey, here's the deal, Mr. and Mrs. Consumer. This is how I get paid. Here's the services that I provide. Do you think that is agreeable with what you're trying to do? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, awesome. If it's no, then let's talk about it.
Yep.
How would you like to compensate me for my services? Here's all the things that I'm going to provide for you. And I'm going to demonstrate my value each
we now as buyer's agents have to sell our value.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, before, and complete transparency, if you signed a buyer's agency agreement, cool, I'm your agent. You picked me to help you buy. That ended it. That was it, right? But now, and this is I'm glad you there's a good segue into it. The second major
king of segues,
right? The second major change.
I'm gonna ride a segue into the podcast one time.
The second large change that this comes from, and this isn't like Jameson was saying earlier. This is each state has their own real estate regulations, and in Colorado, we have always, well, not always, but
since 1992.
92, always to me because that's before I was born. So always, we always have to have a buyer's agency agreement signed before engaging with a buyer, right? And now what this settlement proposes and part of this is that before seeing a house, before a buyer's agent can show you a home, you now have to sign a buyer's agreement. And in that buyer's agreement, before even going to look at a house, you and your agent have to agree upon the compensation for how that buyer's agent is getting paid.
If it's successfully closed.
If it's successfully closed, right? And as it stands now, in our contracts in Colorado, yes, there's already an area where we talk about if the seller does not pay, you will have to compensate the buyer this. But now that's completely changing to the buyer will have to sign a paper saying exactly the amount that the agent will be compensated for the transaction. And that is where I believe a lot of agents are a little bit scared because now how am I going to go to, how is an agent that doesn't know the value, that doesn't understand what we do, how are they going to go to a client and say, hey, buyer, I know you're paying closing costs. I know you're buying a house. I know that the lending has been invasive because you're getting all of your finances out. But before we do anything, this is the number that you're going to pay me. Mm-hmm. And that number could be upwards of $10,000 depending on the average sales price.
No, it could be more than that.
Right? So it comes down to that conversation is scary to a lot of agents. But again, we've always had that here in Colorado.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, and this is coming from two guys that came from sales backgrounds, if you are not able to articulate your value to a customer, to a client, you're going to fail time and time again. Because in a value-based industry, as I've said before, we are of service. This is a service industry. Your value is the most important thing when trying to talk to a client or customer about a transaction.
And as a buyer, I look at it and I say, okay, well, what does value mean? Mm-hmm. Like, what should my buyer's agent be doing? And it's going to be different depending on what you guys' goals and aspirations are when it comes to home ownership, right? But in my head, I don't know why this example sticks out. I was working with a couple back 2 years ago, right? And I do this with all of my clients, where we were going to go look at houses. And we had set up 4 showings, and there's a reason I only do 4 showings. Like, there's some agents that I'll do 15 showings in a day. Fucking stupid. You're not going to remember house number 3. Yeah. So I do 4 showings. But before I do those showings, I make what we call comparative market analysis on every single house that we're going to go see. I call the listing agent before I go to any single showing to figure out, do we have offers? What's the motivation of the seller? What are the things, if we were to bring an offer, that would help entice the seller to choose us over somebody else, right? Then I turn around and I start looking at, is there open houses? Can I go walk properties prior to going into this house so that I have a teachable point of view? Hey guys, you know what? Here's what I think the value of this home is, right? And I think that kind of thing is important, right? I'll tour the neighborhood. especially if it's out of towners, right? I'll take them on a tour
Look at the school district.
of where it's at, what the school district looks
How's
like.
their construction? Is it growing? What's the transportation
Yeah.
look like?
Do we have, for example, Castle Rock's a great example, right? There's a lot of people that want to move over towards on the west side of I-25 down in Castle Rock. And there's going to be a 5,800 single and multifamily dwelling village, essentially, getting built there over the next 3 years with the Costco. If I'm not informing my buyers of that, am I actually doing my job? No.
Nope.
But that's how I provide value, on top of obviously driving, gas mileage, all that kind of stuff, right? I've never pressured my buyers into taking an offer or to submitting an offer ever, because it's not my decision. It's you guys' decision. And then I'm there every step of the way. If they call me at 8 o'clock at night, yeah, I set boundaries, right? Anything past 9, probably won't answer. But up until 9 o'clock, I'm up. I'll answer. You guys have questions. House pops up in the market. You want to get it done, right? The good news is it's not going to be enough to just set somebody up on an automated search, because you can do that on Zillow, on Redfin, on whatever the fuck you want to do it, on Realtor.com, Homes.com. That shit doesn't matter anymore, right? Nope. What matters is the insight and the expertise in every single building, house, condo, townhome that you tour, so that you as a buyer are going, I am not overpaying. I am not getting dragged into a scenario where I'm going to be either house poor or have buyer's remorse or anything like that. And I'm going to love where I live based on what my situation is. That's how that should look from a buyer's agency standpoint. Is that negotiable? 1,000%. Do I think we're going to see multiple forms of compensation come out? Right? 100%.
Oh, I was telling you yesterday, this is so unprecedented that we have now gotten to a point where real estate is going to turn into the wild, wild west.
Yep.
And as far as our buyer's agent's going to charge a flat fee, our buyer's agent's going to charge hourly for their services, our buyer's agent's going to, because this is a huge disruption where normally the buyer does have the peace of mind that they will get service and they don't have to pay upwards an extra for that service. Right? So my biggest fear in all of this is, in a market that is already challenging for home buyers, what this does is I feel like it puts more financial burden on buyers in, like I said, a market that's already financially a burden. And that is my biggest fear, is that, one thing that they talk about is, well, we may not be able to, one part of this, and again, everything is subject to change.
Sure.
This is all based on the information we've gotten in 5 days, right? And opinion and thought. But the thing that I struggle with the most is a lot of people are talking about, sellers can use concessions to and then use that. I'm sorry, but in my mind, concessions are reserved for the benefit of my buyer. Like, I can't in my right mind work a concession into a sale and go, hey, we're going to get 6% of your loan concession value. So let's say $350,000, you get $10,000. I personally, and this is, again, you can disagree, but I wouldn't feel right saying, I got you $10,000, $4,000 of that is going to me.
I disagree.
Okay.
So here's why. Because in the current state, the seller proceeds pay the listing agent. Listing agent then splits that to the buyers. Okay. So that goes away and you replace it with concessions, which still come out of the seller's profit of selling the house that then goes to the buyers. The reason I disagree is because if concessions are supposed to benefit the buyer, but we're also saying that the buyer benefits from having representation, then concessions paying for a buyer's agent's fee to represent that buyer is inherently helping that buyer in a positive way. The difficulty is the limits on concessions, right? Because I would make the argument that, let's say right now, if you're under 20%, the most amount of concessions you can ask for, 6% of the home price, like you said, right? What if that goes away? Or it goes up to 15%. Now, do you have the same argument? Right? If you have a buyer that goes, well, I need a 2-1 buy down to make it make sense. That's going to cost me 2% of whatever the loan is. Another 2% for my agent's fee. And then now I have 2% left over for inspection items, so on and so forth. I think concessions benefiting the buyer is the same, whether it's coming from a broker co-op or not. Because if a buyer can get representation and be shielded and advocated for and protected by a buyer's agent, and the concessions go to pay that buyer's agent, to me, that's a benefit to the buyer. The problem is there's just limitations on how much in concessions we can ask for, and that's on lending standards.
Yeah.
So something's got to give, right?
And I like where you're coming from with it. I do. I think that, in all honesty, I
don't have a calculator. I was going to pull something up.
Yeah.
But apparently this iPad doesn't have a fucking calculator built in.
Interesting.
Right?
Apple.
Dude, I don't have an Apple Watch. I was like, I can do it on my Apple Watch.
Again, and this may be because I'm newer in the industry, but I think, your perspective is accurate if the co-op commission and how we were doing it before didn't exist. And what I mean by that is, because concessions now, you're changing it, right? Concessions, like I said, have recently, and since we do co-ops, concessions have pretty much always been in benefit of the buyer. So to your point, yes, wording the benefit of the buyer to pay the buyer's agent, yes. But the reason I started talking about it, like I said, I prefaced it earlier, is I feel like buyers are the ones that are going to be hurting this, because now
I don't disagree with you.
That concession,
right?
Although it is, yes, paying for the buyer's services and to make sure they get the transaction, that what they would have gotten now, full concessions for the buy downs, whatever it may be, fixed repairs, now a portion of that is dedicated to the buyer's agent versus before how it would have been all to the buyer.
Right. So, so let's run an example. So a $500,000 house. Sorry. Yeah, $500,000 house. And you're putting less than 10% down. Or less than 20% down. You get 6%, right? So 10%'s what? 50,000. 5%'s 25,000.
Let's call it 28,000.
$28,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So a 2-1 buy down on a $500 or a $480,000 loan is probably what, $12,000?
Okay.
Okay. So now you still have 18,000 left over, right? No, more than that. 28 minus 10 is 18. $16,000 left over. So you have 16,000 left over that you can ask for. What's 2.5% on 500,000?
Did you not hear me say I was dyslexic earlier? You're making
okay. Well, whatever. So 10% is 50,000. 5% half of that. That's 25. Half of that is 13.
Okay.
So I got 12,000 for my 2-1 buy down. I got 13 for my buyer's agent. So now I'm at $15,000. I have $1,000 left over if I want to pay closing costs or so on and so forth. So it's situational is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But to me, a seller paying a listing agent 5% of whatever, or 4%, whatever it is, of their proceeds, and then giving it to the listing agent, which then gets just distributed to the listing agent, to the buyer's agent, versus concessions that does the same goddamn thing. To me, it makes sense, right? But it's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where the transparency is going to come in. Because depending on what my buyer needs and depending on what the seller's offering, right, I could see it where if it's a highly competitive market, are buyer's agency fees going to go down? Probably. But if it's not a competitive market, and it might be seasonal, right? You could start to see buyer's agency concessions get offered because sellers are like, well, I don't want to have my house sit on the market for 100 days. But if they're going in 2 days, okay, that's different, right? So I think there's going to be some changes.
Yeah.
I just, in my head, concessions are concessions are concessions. The roadblock is that right now they're limited by the guidelines of Fannie and Freddie and conventional loans.
Well, and that brings up a great point, right? Now, as we said earlier, part of this is the buyer will have to address buyer's agent compensation up front. If you're already struggling to get to the point where you can buy a house, Jameson, are you able to tie in agent commission to your lending,
Nope.
to your loan?
Not yet.
Not as it is, not
No,
as it stands, right?
Not yet. I mean, there may be a pathway to get credits if it's a conventional loan, but right now, FHA, no. VA literally cannot pay current guidelines. VA cannot pay commission.
Yep.
At all.
And it's now, so basically what happens is this verdict comes out and it's the way I see it, it's going, sellers, you can keep more money. Buyers, queue, figure it out. And that's just what it feels like. As I know I'm a realtor saying it, but that's what it feels like. Because at the end of the day, too, there's nothing. And again, we talked about this, the headlines that are saying 6% commission is dead. Commission is and has always been negotiable. But what they're expecting from this is now a seller's agent that was making 5% and giving 2.5% to the buyer. Now that selling agent is going to go in and say, hey, because we don't have to pay the buyer, I'm only going to take 2.5% for my services. And then you get to keep the rest.
Perfect. So here's the segue. Okay. Let's say that's the scenario. Why is making sure as a seller that you have some sort of incentive for a buyer to use a buyer's agent? Why is that important?
I mean, you want to make sure that you're protected and the transaction goes smoothly.
Who's you?
The seller.
Right.
The seller.
So what's the scenario if a buyer comes in, says, hey, I want to buy this house, but I don't want to pay for representation. Seller has representation, right? So from a seller standpoint, does it make sense to have your listing agent represent both sides? Or from a buyer standpoint, does it make sense for the listing agent to only represent the seller and then treat the buyer as a customer?
I mean, I'm sorry, but as liability for us as an agent, you as a buyer, if I am the listing agent, you will always be a customer because my fiduciary duty is to the seller.
Right. So then what does that mean from a buyer standpoint?
Again, they're hanging out to dry.
Right. So let's say the seller goes, you know what? Yeah, that's fine. I don't want to pay a buyer's agent anyway. I'll allow you to be a transaction broker, which is what's dual agency in Colorado is illegal. Just throwing it out there. Like I can't represent
be a listing
both sides.
agent and a buyer's agent.
Can't represent both sides. So in that scenario, in Colorado, we would be what is called a transaction broker. So Charlie, just real quick, take me through why, if I'm a seller, do I want my listing agent to be a transaction broker?
No, because as a transaction broker, we cannot guide you in any sense through a sale because we are representing both parties and I cannot favor the seller. I cannot favor the buyer. So at that point, I have to put my hands up when certain questions are asked and go, I can't answer that because it would be leaning one way or another.
So let's do a skit.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to be the buyer.
Okay.
You're going to be the listing agent.
All right. Hello.
And the seller's going to be this barrel.
All right.
Okay. What's up, seller? So you're selling a house. I like this house. This is a nice house. This is a nice boulder.
Yeah, that's a nice boulder.
I watched Shrek.
We just renovated the kitchen.
Dude, I watched Shrek the other day for the first time with Kieran.
Good for you.
And I swear to God, I got more enjoyment out of it because their humor is so on point. Anyway, that's a nice boulder. Anyway, I'm a buyer. You're the listing agent. Hey, I don't have a buyer's agent.
Okay.
Can you represent me?
No.
Okay. Can you write an offer for me?
No.
Can you ask your seller if they'll allow you to be a transaction broker? This is a very informed buyer, but anyway.
I can absolutely ask, but I can't guarantee that they'll be willing to do that.
Okay. So now let's say they said, yep, that's fine.
Okay.
So you're a transaction broker now. All right, Charlie, I'd like to write an offer. What should I offer on this house?
Honestly, if you'd like, take a look at Zillow and see kind of what's looking around, but I can't really guide you on that price point.
Okay. So I looked at the Zestimate, and the Zestimate says this house is worth like $460,000, but you're listed at $485,000. Should I offer it $460,000 or $485,000?
Honestly, it's whatever you feel most comfortable with the knowledge that you have currently.
Okay. But what do you think the house is worth?
Honestly, it comes down to what you think the house is worth based on what you've seen.
Do you have other offers?
It's not my place.
Okay.
Right now, I can't really divulge that information.
What kind of interest do you have on the property?
As of right now, if you want to check, Zillow shows how many saves we have on the property. So does Redfin.
All right. So it says you have 987 saves. So is it a popular property?
I guess based on that number, it depends on what you think is valuable.
Okay. Well, here, I want to write this offer at $460,000 because that's what Zillow tells me. These dates and deadlines. What should I do?
Honestly, there's some resources that you could probably find online for that. But that you're gonna have to kind of come up with those.
So like if I have the off record title deadline and then the termination date, how far apart should those be?
What are you comfortable with?
I don't know. I've never done this before.
You should probably watch some YouTube videos.
Okay, fair enough. I'll do that.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Charlie, here's my offer. Can you look over this? I filled everything out on a contract sheet that I found online. Can you make sure that I didn't miss anything?
Actually, I have a list of real estate lawyers that I can refer you to kind of help you out with that. But as of right now, I can't give you any guidance on this.
Okay. Are they? Do they have like free consultations?
No. So a couple of them, most of them charge hourly for any kind of conversation.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I talked to them. $300 an hour? That's ridiculous. All right. Here's my offer. Can you accept it? Bring it to your seller.
I'll present it to them.
Okay. Perfect.
I'll definitely show them the offer.
Awesome. Hey, we're under contract. So I hear I need a home inspection. Do you recommend that?
So, I do have some home inspectors that I usually use during some transactions, and I can refer you to them. But at this time, I can't recommend to you to not do an inspection.
Okay. Well, I do have a question. So I went to one of your home inspectors, Lionheart Home Inspections. Shout out Chris Walters.
Great
Love
guy.
you. But he's got like a bunch of different packages. So like there's like a radon package. I don't even know what radon is. Sewer line inspection is like $150. Which one should I choose?
It's wild. Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm going to be cheap because I don't want to pay for a buyer's agent. So I'm just going to do a standard home inspection. Question for you though. My lender said that the appraisal came in low. What should I do?
You should probably talk a little bit more to your lender about the direction.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you guys see what we're talking about?
Right,
That's what a transaction broker is. We can't represent properly.
No.
And at the end of the day, again, like I said, the reason me and Jameson got into this, I know Oscar too, is because we want to help. We want to be of service. And I'm sorry, but if that's how I have to do a transaction, I don't feel right doing that. No. I don't.
And
thank you guys for sticking around through the whole
right,
show.
That was a good skit. We used to do this at Best Buy all the time, guys, role plays.
Yep.
But the point is, as a buyer or even as a seller, right? Because you could take that same script we just did, flip it, and I originally was representing the seller, and now I'm a transaction broker. And let's say the buyer says, "Hey, I want A, B, C, D, and E fixed on this inspection report, and I want this done by a certain amount of time, whatever." And if the seller comes, "Well, hey, Charlie or Jameson, how should I respond to this inspection objection?" The answer is, how do you want to respond? Well, you can't give me guidance. No, I'm a transaction broker.
I can't show favor to either
I can't
party.
show favor to either party. I am a paper pusher at this point. Well, hey, the appraisal came in low. We our house is listed at 480. We took an offer at 460. Appraiser's saying it's 450. Do I renegotiate? Do you want to renegotiate? So the point is, we are there because people do this. What is it? Every 7 to 10 years, right? And we've talked about this before, that like, if I play soccer every Monday night, right, with a bunch of high school kids that just run me around in circles. But if I played soccer once every 7 years, would I be any good?
I'll give you an even better analogy. I used to watch football.
Yep.
I used to be into football when my best friend lived with me. If you do not watch football and you are in a conversation with people who watch football, if you do not watch for 2 weeks, how far behind are you going to be on trade deals, contract signings, different plays that were called, whatever it may be? Like that right there. Exactly. Like, and that's the thing. Like I said, I understand all of this as somebody who's only been a real estate agent for a year and a half at this point, almost 2 years. I get it. I'm not far removed from the point where I didn't know anything about real estate. And that's why I say we got here because people don't know. Agents got compliant. Agents got comfortable. Hey, here's a contract. Cool. I'm your agent. Sign this. Do this. Let's get an inspection. Let's get the appraisal. Let's go. Cool. Closing. Woo. Let's take our picture in front with the sign. Right. But as home prices have increased, as people, and again, I'm sorry, one thing that really kills me and what's funny is when we left that meeting yesterday, I was just checking out the brands of cars, that we're driving out. If you are a realtor, if you are a real estate agent, if you are in real estate and you are flaunting in any kind of a way the money that you've made, the things that you were able to have from this profession, social media, taking photos, whatever it may be, you're the problem, and I hate you for it.
Hashtag Kia Sorrento, baby.
Like, it's just, But I understand it. Like, I'm sorry
I get
when
it too. Yes.
you see agents that are like, look at me, I'm $1 million agent. I make all this money. I have all this stuff. Obviously, if somebody sees that video and they feel that they cannot afford a home and that they're losing money, obviously you guys are going to feel that way. And I'm sorry, but we did it to ourselves.
And there's the adage of, if you're working with a good real estate agent, right, you're going to feel like the transaction was the easiest thing in the entire planet. And we don't do a good enough job being transparent, saying, hey, this is what we actually did behind the scenes, right? And Charlie and I could both give you plenty of examples of the things that we've done out of our way, right? I mean, for example, to list a house, I put on a mask and gloves to go throw away food left on a counter at a listing of mine to make sure that it didn't spoil, because the sellers just booked it out of state without telling me. And I have to list this house. And I drove an hour and a half out there, an hour and a half back. I go once a week to check on the property and make sure nobody's broken in, whether that be people or deer or antelope or whatever.
Evil horses.
Or evil horses. Fuck that evil horse. I've gone in and cleaned up trash. I have helped people move. I have physically gone and met a seller in a multi-million-dollar home to help them remove trash so that they could pass it on to the next. That's not in my job description, right? At all. So there's things that we do. Here's my last thing, and then we can go to our normal thing, right? Yeah. Here's my last thing. People tend to be excited because they're thinking, oh my God, using a realtor now is going to be cheaper because it's negotiable. Again, always been negotiable. This is an industry where you get what you pay for, just like anything else, okay? So the headline is, how low could your commissions go? Take a look at how the UK sells homes, right? And this whole article details how these online companies have basically started a la carte listing or home buying services. And they literally say, do you want us to tour homes with you? That's $1,500. Do you want us to take pictures? That's $800. Do you want us to do this? Whatever. And it's a la carte, right? And the average of these a la cartes, like 1%, is what it takes to list and sell your home. Okay? So as they go through this is fucking mind-boggling. Sell your home for free. No bull, promises one such agency, Purple Bricks, on its website. They were founded a decade ago and offer sellers a valuation and a listing for free, somehow. Sellers can choose, however, to pay the range of services considered standard among traditional real estate agencies. Okay? So $1,200 to have one of its agents conduct property viewings. $1,000 for a package that includes professional photos. But it's lower than a normal $4,000 homeowner can expect to spend. Hold on, so check this shit out. Hold on. So check this shit out. These online agencies have accounted for just 5.5% of homes sold in the last 3 months of 2023. Okay? They have said fundamentally, it has changed the UK real estate agency market, making it much more competitive and transparent. But their market share of these a la carte, boutique, whatever, has fallen steadily from a high of 8.2% in the final quarter of 2019. So what you're saying is everybody comes out, offers these cheap services, and yet your market share has fallen. And the UK is very different than the United States, right? They don't have an NAR that's propping up commissions and so on and so forth. Yet even in that environment, this cheap a la carte, let me sell your home for a flat, very nominal fee has lost market share, because at the end of the day, if you have people that are doing it correctly and doing it at a high level, homeowners make more money. When homeowners make more money, they tell other people that, hey, I made money with this person, and all of a sudden you start to see that these fees and whatever it is start to get justified, right? If you think about what it takes to market a home, and Charlie, you're a perfect person for this because you run a real estate photography company, okay? It costs money to market. So if I tell you, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm going to sell your home for $2,000, okay? Well, let's take a look at the expense breakdown. If I pay for photos, what's photos, video, drone, 3D walkthrough, and I don't know, whatever else. I can tell you, Zillow charges $5,000 a year one listing a year or one listing a month, right? So 5,000 divided by 12. We'll divide it 10.
I was going to say it's anywhere between $550 and $750.
Cool. So let's say 500. Okay. Okay. It's going to cost me $500 to take photos, video, floor plan, etc. of your home to market it. Remember, I'm making $2,000 off of this listing. So now my 2,000 minus 500. Now I'm making $1,500. Okay. Set up open houses, and I want to buy cookies. I want to buy signage. I want to print flyers, so on and so forth. Let's say it's per open house, it's $150. Now I'm at $750. So I went from $1,500 minus $150. Now I'm making $1,350 an hour, or $1,350 for this transaction. Now I got to drive back and forth. So I have gas mileage. I've got wear and tear on my car. Let's say the gas is another $50 to $100, depending on if it takes 1 or 2 months to sell your home. Now I'm down to $1,200. Okay, $1,200. Oh, by the way, I got to pay to have your listing posted on the MLS, right? Mm-hmm. I have to drive then to meet inspectors and appraisers. Maybe I run Facebook ads to market your home to the largest audience, right?
Which on average you're looking at, if you really want to do an effective marketing, $150 to $300.
All right, so let's go
per ad.
Let's say $100. Now I'm down to $1,150. Now I want to create a digital flyer and I want to blast it out to the 8,000 agents in the area, Douglas County, for example. That's $375. Now I'm down to $900. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to sell it. If you have let's say you have a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house. I know the people that are going to buy that house are probably living in 3-2s that are upgrading because they had a kid, so on and so forth. So I want to send postcards or specifically market those individuals. Those postcards are $1.20 a postcard. I want to send 400 of them. I'm at $500 from $975. Now I'm down to $400, right?
Oh, don't you still have to pay taxes in your brokerage?
We're not going to talk about that or the split.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying straight up, I'm going to make $400.
Okay.
I will make $400 listing your home faster than anybody else if my flat rate is $2,000. Do you think that somebody making $2,000 on the house is going to look at those expenses and go, yeah, that makes sense?
I want to know, like, I honestly want to, like, the question that I want to ask from that, and I please, if you are watching, comment, because I want to get a general consensus. What do you think? What does the public think that realtors should be paid? Because you always see realtors get paid too much. Okay, I hear you there. Tell me what you think it is, because I genuinely want to. I want to understand from your perspective what you think it's worth. What is the value? Because as an agent, if we are now selling our value, I need to know what you think the value is in comparison with what I'm about to offer you, especially if I'm a buyer's agent. Because if we're so far apart on what you think the value is and what I'm going to charge you, at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you, hey, look, I wish you the best of luck on your transaction, and I hope it goes well for you. But with where you sit and the value that you see me providing, at this time, I don't think that we would be a good fit as a client-agent relationship.
I didn't, in that scenario I just described, I didn't even touch on the fact that, let's say we've got 5, 6, 7 offers.
Yeah.
And I'm fielding phone calls this entire time, right? And I'm reviewing offers, and I'm breaking them down, putting them in a spreadsheet, explaining it to you, my seller, saying, hey, here's the pros and cons. Here's the different loan types. I'm going to call the loan officer that has pre-approved this buyer. I'm going to vet them. I'm going to do all these different things. And I'm going to make, after everything, $250 before splits. Before splits.
And again, it's
right?
The last thing.
Or as an independent agent, let's say I just run my own boutique real estate company and I don't pay splits. I pay taxes, right? And my taxes say my commission was $2,000.
Yep.
But my expenses were
$3,000. The hard thing about this too is, like, oh man, it's a losing battle, right?
It's not, but it's not though.
But
because
what I mean,
everything I just described.
Yes.
Can a seller do for themselves?
Yes. But
do they want to?
What I mean by
do they
that,
have the time?
No, but
the energy, the resources. Not.
But what I mean by that is, no matter what we do, if we clip this up, right?
Yep.
We're complaining because we make too much. And again,
no, I'm not.
I feel
I'm not.
What I mean though is that is how this is seen. Like, you're a real estate agent. Of course you're gonna try and pitch us on why you should make more money. That's not why we're here. It's not why we do this.
No.
Guys, this is episode 61, right? We don't make any money from this. We don't ask for any, like.
No, it costs us money to do this.
Yeah, right. We're here for you. We want to be here for you. And the conversations, the people that I have met since doing this, the knowledge that I've learned is invaluable.
Yep.
And we will continue to do it. Even if you're not watching, if you're not listening, we will continue to do this.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
it's just hard. Because I feel for the consumer. I understand it. I 100% understand it. But I am in no way, shape, or form going to sit here and try and defend myself or defend it, because it's not worth it. And at the end of the day, if you do not see my value,
fire me.
I don't want to work. Yeah, fire. Don't use me. Don't. And that's not a hateful thing. It's legitimately just.
No, but if
I
you
want to
guys,
make sure you're
if
comfortable.
consumers are going to get the option, right, to negotiate commission, which, oh, by the way, it's always been an option. Okay. Like,
It's always been there.
Whatever. Make sure that your money is going to somebody or something that's worth it.
All right. I think this is, yes.
That's it.
This is a great time to move into the One Rock takeaway, because I think that's where we're getting to at this point. Right?
Ooh, doggy.
Great. Please, guys, reach out to us, DM us.
No, for real.
I agree. Ask us any questions that you want, because this is confusing, regardless of how we feel about it, how anybody feels. The headlines are out there. You're seeing it. The media is pushing this a certain way, and it's all getting convoluted. And it's going to change. What we saw last Friday, the judge could come back and go, yeah, I'm not comfortable with this. That's still a possibility, and we have to redo all of this again.
Yep.
And so I think this is a good time to move into the One Rock takeaway for today's episode. And if you're a first-time listener, One Rock takeaway, we just kind of condense a thought from today's topic into it, and then we move into our bourbon review. So I'm going to go ahead and go first with the One Rock takeaway.
By all means, sir. The floor is yours.
My One Rock takeaway for today's episode is, this is why it is extremely important for you to not only vet your agents, but understand how to properly vet your agents, what questions to ask to an agent to make sure that you are comfortable paying them as a buyer or as a seller's agent. I've seen way too many people, friends, family members, that have gotten agents given to them through different sources that they didn't question it. They just said, okay, cool. And then the transaction's done, and oh yeah, I didn't even see them at closing. I didn't enjoy it. They didn't answer my questions, and I'm sorry that happened to you. I wish it didn't, and it did, and that sucks. But what kind of questions did you ask to that agent before you said, let's sign this paper? So that's my One Rock takeaway is, we've said it a bunch of times, vet your agents, understand what the value is, and if an agent cannot provide that value to you, do not use that agent, whether that be financially, verbally, monetarily, whatever it is.
Yeah, I would tell you guys to I almost want to say, if you're going to work and pay for our help, right, whoever it is, ask that person to articulate their value. Like, you as a consumer should say, I'm paying you, so what are you going to do for me? And then at that point, and I think this is where the various models are going to come in, right? Where it's going to be this song and dance of, I want this level of service, but maybe I only can pay for this level of service, right? So it turns into like, what do you want from me? Do you want me to just write an offer? Cool. Pay me XYZ. $1,000. You find your house. You love it. You want me to write your offer and make sure that you're protected, dates and deadlines, etc. It's $1,000. You're good to go. And then every time I have to write a counter offer, it's an extra $100, whatever it looks like. Like, there's going to be different models. But if you want the full service, which I truly believe from a consumer advocacy standpoint, everybody should ask for, especially because it's such a large purchase. There's so many different variables and there's so many different things that can go wrong. Then make sure whoever you're working with can articulate what they are going to do, right? Because everybody can say, I'm going to show you houses, I'm going to give you my value on the opinion, and I'm going to answer the phone. Okay, great. Everybody can do that, right? But are they going to do things that are above and beyond that? And if they are, can they articulate what those things are? If so, and that justifies their cost, awesome. If they have a cost and you think, you know what, that is good, but I want to negotiate a little bit lower, do it. I'll be honest, do it, right? You're going to have agents say, I'm not going to go that low, or you know what, no, this is my bare minimum. And then if you decide you want to go somebody else, shop it around. We've said that forever. Always shop your agents, whether it's listing, whether it's buying, doesn't matter. But make sure they can articulate what the value is, right? I see a lot of agents that go, hey, what's your value prop when it comes to listing a house? Oh, I've got flyers, I do emails, I do open houses, and I price it right. Okay, cool. So how do you get, like, do you go find buyers? Some of them will say yes, right? Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you got a four bedroom, 3 bathroom house. I'm going to go market it to the 3.2s. Hey, you've got a assumable VA loan. I'm going to go talk to my VA rep constituents, and I'm going to get a list of all the veteran they're looking at, maybe they've owned their house for at least 5 years. They have equity. They want to look at whatever. Like, you're going to find ways to do that, right? If they can't articulate it, maybe it's not the right person. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, my one rock takeaway is I believe I smoke my meat, right? Mm-hmm. Do briskets. I do picanha. I do ribs. I do tri-tip.
If your nut game was as good as your meat game,
I would smoke some macadamia nuts like nobody's fucking business. But here's what I will tell you. I can give people a cut of tri-tip, mm-hmm. right? The best tri-tip is going to be the one that trims the most fat. I think that what this litigation does is it trims the fat mm-hmm. of the real estate industry.
Yep.
And anytime people have to compete, the consumer wins. Mm-hmm. And I think that is ultimately what is going to happen.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Whew. What a topic. What an episode.
Bro, could have gone 3.5 hours.
Oh, yeah. You
ever watch the Huberman Labs? Great doc.
Okay.
He's a neuropsychologist and neuroscientist. His podcasts go like 2.5, 3 hours.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like there's some. I feel like there's just some topics that you could go like 3 hours and just go. Yeah.
Especially imagine if we had. That's what we should have done was get a consumer in to talk about
Maybe next time we'll do that.
Yeah. Maybe we. Yeah.
We'll guarantee that consumer will be like, what's happening?
I don't even know. NAR, the NRA is doing something.
Sicky pow pow nar nar. Are we talking about skiing and snowboarding? Like, what the fuck?
But I think now is a good time to move into the bourbon review. For today's episode.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, boy. All right. So the star bourbon. And all right, hold on. Stellum Perseus. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
For a high proof,
mm-hmm.
single barrel, store select. Actually, I can't give you the price yet, so just tell me what you think.
Okay. Obviously, you guys, we take a couple pours, couple sips throughout the episode.
Yeah, how does this work? How does the rating work?
So what we do is we call it a rock rating. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the best, 10 being the worst, because the more rocks you put in a bourbon or whiskey, usually the worse that bourbon whiskey is. So closer to 1, the better the bourbon or whiskey. Closer to 10, the worse.
Just saying, discount realtors probably put like 10 rocks in their whiskeys.
Yeah, 100%.
Just
delightfully surprised by it, especially at that 112. The flavor, the complexity of the flavor is definitely there. I was, from the beginning, that first sip to even now, the burn definitely subsides. Mine's been open. I only had 1 pour, but it's the burn is still there on the nose. It doesn't die too much, but the sweetness comes through. And then I like the difference between the nose and the palate.
I do, yeah.
Right? Because the nose is sweet. It's light. You get that oak, but then on the palate, boom, spice right up front. Mm-hmm. Then it evolves down. I would have thought the sweetness hit you first.
Yeah, it doesn't.
No.
The cayenne, the black pepper hit first.
Mm-hmm.
Then it melds into that kind of marshmallow, vanilla, caramel. You've got those fruit tones mm-hmm. that kind of add like almost like a tartness, essentially, right? Because to me, like when people say, "Oh, the burn is," a lot of people equate burn and tart. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. They're very, very different.
Absolutely.
Right? The burn is just, hey, I'm drinking whiskey. The tart is, all right, there's a different level to this.
Yep.
But then it bleeds into the sweetness where it goes, hey, here's the complexity. Now, when you finish it off, mm-hmm. you're going to enjoy the finish. Which, to me, when I'm drinking bourbon, if I enjoy the finish, it always entices me to, I want to experience it again.
Yes.
Right? It's like a good roller coaster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You go on
mm-hmm.
shitty roller coasters.
Well,
but you go to that one and you're like, dude, I'd ride this again.
Well, and the thing that I like about this one is it's actually a point. Like, it's the want to keep coming back kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
I love how it's the spice forward, but then it sits on the palate so sweet.
Yes.
Like just from those tasting notes, 100% that honey at the back end, that sweetness.
Yep.
Like that for me, a lot of bourbons you get stale.
Yeah.
Like the flavor doesn't sit.
The sweetness disappears.
Yeah.
Right.
And it
After you
just
start to drink
becomes-
it, then it just becomes the char and the oak, and
Yep.
the burn and the spice, and it becomes, I don't want to say one dimensional, but it's that one flavor profile sticks out.
Yes.
Once you have glass number 2, it's like, all right, it's spicy.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you got something that's 112 proof.
Yes.
You tend to have that. But this maintains that caramel, vanilla, marshmallow, syrupy honey.
Yep.
But also doesn't lose the heat.
Like I would love to see you smoke with this because I feel like the spice and the sugar would combine so well.
Oh, dude, if I did like a rib roast,
Yeah.
and then had this as a reduction,
And then it's like, oh man, that'd be so good. Yeah. 100%.
or bourbon ribs,
You might have to-
bourbon ribs with this.
Oh yeah. Like I said, it's because it's not just like flavor 1, flavor
No.
2, flavor 3. It's a
No.
combination of it.
Yeah.
All right. So before we give the rating,
Yep.
what we usually like to do is talk about the price, because obviously when we pick our bourbons, we don't want the normal. You're gonna walk into a bar, see it on the shelf, kind of a thing, go for it.
I've never seen this.
Right? We like giving
Yeah.
bourbons that if you are want to try different ones, it's gonna be interesting for you to go to pick up. So what is the price on this guy?
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
So knowing what you know, 112 single barrel, store select. Obviously, we tasted it. What would you expect the price to be?
65 to 75.
Okay. 59.
Dope. It's not bad.
No.
And that's at a major retailer.
Right.
We know that retailers switch up prices based on their overhead and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But I mean,
$59 bucks.
for
Under
60 bucks, you gotta think too. Like, I think that comparing this to another bottle that's similar, the Dexter, right? That's right around 60, 65.
Yep.
And kind of same proofing. I think it's 100.
Dexter was 100.
100 proof.
So 50%. Yeah.
I think that this one does a phenomenal job of the complexity of the flavors. It is a little bit sweeter, I would say, than like the Dexter or the Midsummer Night's Dram, how it kind of
I don't
tailors
know,
off.
Dude, Midsummer Nights is sweet.
It's sweet, but it doesn't sit sweet.
No, it doesn't.
You know, like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
one definitely sits sweeter. So, man, but $60 for it.
Well, dude, and if you buy a Midsummer Night's Dram, you're at $100.
Yeah. I tried to go with the Dexter just because it's like
Dexter's 65.
a little
So,
bit closer, but again, less proofing. This is a hard one. This is a hard one. I love the flavor of it. Honestly, even now, sitting on the palate, I wish the barrel came through a little bit.
Right.
I think that what it does with it is the sweetness comes from the barrel. The sugar comes from the wood.
Yeah.
But I do wish there was like a char 4 on this. you
know.
like we've had.
Yeah.
I wish there was some kind of that. The tobacco's there, but letting this sit and open, I feel like it does go from spice to sweet. It's not as transformative as it could be, being a small batch, being a barrel select.
So I wonder what your opinion would be if we had the Cygnus, which, so just for a recap, this is the Perseus, 75% corn, 21% rye, 4% barley malt, right? The Cygnus, though, is 60% corn, 36% rye, 4%.
I probably like that more.
Right? Because I think the more, and part of the reason rye whiskeys are so dry is because of the char in the barrel.
Yeah.
So if you add more rye, or you go complete opposite and you go to the Serpens, which is 95% rye, 5% barley malt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think maybe we just start the series next week.
It's kind of cool, though, that they have those
Yeah.
different ones, because to me, that hits on multiple palates, right? Because you go 95% rye, this is a completely different.
Totally different. And I'd be interested to see what that's
But
like.
60
Yeah. I like
and
how
36.
they have like a all the
You get-
way. Like
yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Right.
Middle, you have a middle, you
it's
have
like
a right, you
you
have
got
a
to
left.
find the Goldilocks
Yeah.
of what it is. So I think for what, in my opinion, right, for what it is, at 75% corn, we always expect a sweeter bourbon when you have that high of a corn mash bill. And again, at $59, like
Not bad.
it's
Not bad.
not.
I'm gonna let you give your rating first.
I'm gonna go 3.5.
3.5. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because a couple reasons. One, normally high proof bourbons are very particular. Like there's not a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm gonna drink a high proof bourbon. This one's palatable. Number one.
Very.
Number two, at the price, it's palatable to the wallet. Right? We're dealing with inflation, so we want to be economically and fiscally responsible. But I do like the journey it takes me on because, to your point earlier, none of it fades. Like from sip one until now, it's been the same, if not a couple of different flavors specifically for me anyway. Like the tart blackberry and the marshmallow have kind of bubbled up to the top. And I think that's a really good mix. Like my palate, I like it.
Yeah.
I'd be interested, because JC's glass has been sitting open, if that tastes different.
See, and it's, we say this all the time. It's hard with the rock rating because like if we go based solely on the basis of the rock rating, I would not put anything in this because I feel like it would take away from that
Agreed.
growth.
Agreed.
I
I think if anything, if you put like either a rock or you put a drop of water, I think the pepper would come out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because anytime you add water, it starts to quell the sweetness.
Yes.
So I think the pepper, like the cayenne and the black pepper would show up. The spice would show up a little bit more.
The reason I was surprised by it is because I know I've been hard on some bourbons recently. I know I've been giving it.
Not last week.
Last week I wasn't. Last week surprised us all though.
Yeah.
Chris Stapleton, good man.
I went and bought 2 more bottles as soon as I left.
Right. I think I'm sitting at about a 3.2.
Okay. See, we're close.
Yeah. I think I'm
close.
sitting at a 3.2. It just, I like the higher proofing. Again, Dexter to us was a 2.5,
Yeah.
2.6.
One of the highest
what we
we've had.
rated.
Yep.
And I like how this one is cost effective. It's 112 proof, and you still get complexity. It's not dominated by the burn. You still get that flow of flavor. So yeah, I'm sitting right about a 3.2 on it.
Yeah, I agree.
Good stuff. Good choice.
Stellum, good work.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the future we'll have the
I want the
other ones.
I want the other ones.
Might have to check out the other ones. If not next week, then in the future.
Stellum, if you're watching this for some reason, reach out to us. I'll tag you. We'll tag you in the video. But reach out to us. We'd love to try some of your other bottles.
Yeah, absolutely.
But good work. I mean, price point's great. Flavor's great. Sippability is fantastic.
Yep.
And it's this is the other thing we talk about with higher proof bourbons. There's a different buzz.
Yes.
Based on the bourbon. This one is very light and airy.
Yes.
And like we've talked about it before. Like I don't feel heavy.
No.
You know what I mean? I don't feel foggy. I feel like I've enjoyed sipping this. And if I was with other bourbon drinkers, I'd be like, hey, you know what? Something you probably haven't tried before. Check this out. I think they'd be like, you know what? You're right.
Yeah. It's good. It's good.
To the moon.
To the moon. Well, on that note, guys, thank you so much for joining us on another episode. Remember, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Living in Colorado, the Mile High Perspective. We post community spotlight videos. We do new home tours, not just this podcast. But leave us a like, comment, follow us on TikTok, the Mile High Perspective. Thank you guys so much for all the support you've been showing us there. You guys are driving the views up, commenting. Thank you so much.
Hopefully we don't get banned.
Right? You can find us each at our own independent socials. You can find me at That Lifting Agent or Jameson.
The Colorado real estate guy.
And I know Oscar's in the barrel today, but you can find him at Oscar the Realtor, OscarTheRealtor.com. And on that note, guys, at any point in time, you've heard Jameson talk about it at the beginning. Reach out to us, DM us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be. But you can always email us or give us a phone call if you want to work with us, ask us any questions. Email is resotr@themilehighperspective.com. Give us a ring.
Phone number 303-578-0263. Again, we've gotten a lot of DMs on like TikTok. If that's where you guys feel comfortable, by all means, shoot us questions. It doesn't matter if we're in the same state. Obviously, we represent Colorado. That's where we're licensed. But if you guys are in Illinois, for example, or West Virginia or California, whatever it is, reach out. We'd love to talk to you guys and connect.
You guys do this 3 or 4 times in a lifetime. We deal with this information every day.
Yep.
And we know that we're here for you. We want to be here for you. We want to make sure you're going through transaction the most comfortable and sure in your mindset and your abilities as possible. On that note, great episode, J-Mo.
Hey, love it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Catch you guys next week.